This is a HP41C, or rather just the front half of it. And this has got a nice feature, this calculator, in that you can put overlays over the keys. And I thought it'd be interesting to have a go at making some. So I've got my can transformer, where you can cut out aluminium sheet from drinks cans. So I had a go at making a few overlays out of aluminium, and they're quite nice. There's a bit of a curvature to them. I need to maybe create some sort of mill. This is the first attempt here, which has got square corners. I subsequently put rounded corners on the keys to match the original overlay a bit better, and these do actually fit on the keyboard. So you can latch it. There's a nice little catch at the top, and you get a metal overlay. So you could write on there. I haven't found a good way of marking it. I might be able to engrave it on my other CNC machine. In fact, I might try cutting out some overlays from a blank sheet. So this one you can see is the other way around, and you get the artwork from whatever can it was cut from. So you can end up with quite a funky overlay. It's a bit difficult to see anything that was written on there though, but it's quite colourful. So I made quite a few of these, and they do work. The square hole without a radius in the corners, that works as well. And if you pick the bend correctly so that you've got the artwork on the back, you end up with it bending away from you, sorry, towards you this way, which means it flattens out quite nicely when you latch it in, and it pings out when you want to remove it. The machining isn't brilliant on some of these. I need to adjust my can transformer and I think make it a bit more rigid, but it does come out with some pretty nice stuff if you get the depth right, and it works well. So I thought that was fairly successful, and then I had a go at cutting some overlays from styrene sheet, and they come out really well. I've still got the tabs here on this one, but they have worked very well indeed. The holes are cut out really nicely. They fit in there. These lie flat because they come from sheet, which means I'm probably going to have to tilt that, flip it out that way. You can write on it as well. It seems fairly permanent to ballpoint and also Sharpie or permanent marker. This one, I don't know if you can see, I've actually engraved, so there's some text on there which is machined, but it doesn't go all the way through. The problem with that is it's not very readable. I'd have to fill it with ink or something. It's been very difficult finding a way of getting this to, or getting the text on there. So this one is slightly different. This one I've machined through with a stencil font. This is just a mock-up. So you can actually read that. That's pretty good, although something went wrong with the R in the font there. So I did it again and got that. So you can see without the stencil font you end up with bits missing. It's still readable, A to E and F and hexadecimal and things. So that's sort of vaguely successful. So I then thought, well, maybe I couldn't find any plastic that was black on the front and white on the back or anything like that, not in the right thickness, which it's got to be less than 0.5 millimetre I found. So I thought maybe I could take the white plastic, spray paint it black, and then engrave the writing on top. And that sort of worked. The unfortunate thing is that the paint isn't very robust. Maybe I needed a couple of layers, maybe spray it, let it dry and spray it again. You can see you got the same thing with the stencil font problem of the middle of letters falling out, and also some paint has come off at the edge of the stencil there. It's readable, but it's just a bit untidy. It doesn't look very nice. I had a couple of goes at that. That was the more successful. This one's the less successful, where there's quite a lot of paint has peeled off. Now, maybe there's another way of colouring styrene, but I'm not sure. I didn't really look around too much. I then had to go at making transparent stencils, because you could maybe put a paper one underneath, or have some other way of marking it, and that is about, well, maybe that one. These are the 2 successful ones of the 4 that I did. It does fit on there. You can see through. That's one difference with this one. You can see the key markings underneath. But you could maybe put paper, maybe, underneath that, so you could inkjet a label and put some paper underneath it. I don't have an inkjet printer, so that's pretty difficult for me to do, but yeah, it's probably possible, and that would give you a pretty durable clear overlay on the top, and then you could put your text underneath. They came out fairly successfully. Main problem is marking it. The metal ones you could probably write on with a Sharpie, and I think the ones where you cut all the way through, that's actually worked fairly well and is quite readable, and as long as you use the right font, stencil font, you end up with most of the plastic still there. I mean, you still have a few problems on things like B's, which are pretty small, but that's not too bad. Maybe it's not as good as the vinyl cut ones with the inkjet printing on the back, but I don't have any sort of drag knife or anything for cutting sheets, so these have all been machined with a D-bit, but it's fairly successful, I think. Just out of interest, I've done some paper overlays. They have cut out, but the edges are pretty rough. They're usable. You can actually put them on, and you could easily write on them, and they'd be pretty permanent. And they're thin enough that you can put a clear plastic one over the top, so they'd be fairly durable. They don't look too bad on the calculator. They look pretty rough off it. And just out of interest, I can't get that off now. Just out of interest, I've done a card version. This is just some scrap card I had. Same problem, it's just pretty rough around the edges. If you could sort that out, or get a cutter that would cut card and paper better. That one also fits. It's quite an interesting green colour actually. You could then write on that and then do the same thing, maybe. Yeah, there's not quite enough room. Well, you can just get the clear plastic one on top, so that would give you some protection. But yeah, it doesn't machine very well on my machine anyway, not with the D-bit. There might be some other cutter that would cut card and paper better. It almost works.